Welcome to the induction for V-Shop at Derby Carriage Works. V-Shop is a new purpose-built facility for commissioning and testing of the new Class 345 Crossrail trains. V-Shop has 4 multi-purpose bays with full-length running rails and full-length overhead 25 kV lines. Each bay has an interlocked fence running around the outside of it to cut the power out if someone enters the road, and each bay has the ability to switch between off mode, sail mode and test mode. Let's talk about those modes in some more detail now. V-Shop can operate in 3 different modes. It's really important that you know what equipment is operating, in what state and in what mode. So the 3 modes that we have are off mode, sail mode and test mode. First we'll talk about off mode. In off mode there's no interlock on the gate to get into the road. There's no high voltage 25,000 volt power in the overhead lines. There's no 400 volts AC power in the pit. However, you still have high pressure air lines engaged, 240 volts AC in the pit and 110 volts AC also in the pit. The next mode is sail mode. In sail mode you still have no interlock engaged on the gate, you have no 25,000 volt overhead line. However, in sail mode you do have 400 volts AC active in the pit, you still have your high pressure air, and also you have your 240 and 110 volts AC. The final mode then is test mode. In test mode you do have that interlock on the gate, so as soon as you enter a road in test mode it will cut all of the power out completely on that road. Also in test mode you have that 25,000 volts overhead line active. Like with sail mode you have your 400 volts AC power in the pit. And also like the other 2 modes, you still have your high pressure air, 240 volts AC and 110 volts AC. So we can see that test mode is the most dangerous mode because we've got that overhead line active. When you visit V-Shop, you'll notice that people are wearing different coloured lanyards. So what are those different coloured lanyards and what do they mean? Well, we've got 4 colours of lanyard. We've got the red lanyard, the purple lanyard, the yellow and the green. The red lanyard is for people who want to get access to V-Shop but won't actually be doing any physical work. To get a red lanyard, you need to have a Derby site induction, electrical awareness training and a local induction for V-Shop. Next is the purple lanyard. The purple lanyard is for people who want to undertake physical work on the trains within V-Shop. The purple lanyard will be given to you when you arrive at the facility and you've signed in, and it must be returned upon leaving and signing out of V-Shop. To gain the purple lanyard you need all the training from the red lanyard, so the Derby induction, the electrical awareness training, the V-Shop induction, but you also need to complete a V-Shop assessment after that as well. The final 2 lanyards hold a bit more responsibility than the first 2. So the next lanyard is the yellow one. The yellow lanyard is for people who have undertaken and completed person in charge training. This means they can apply power voltage within V-Shop. In this case that would be using sail mode. To gain the yellow lanyard you need all of the training from the previous red and purple lanyards, so your Derby induction, electrical awareness training, your local V-Shop induction, the V-Shop assessment, and also you'll need emergency first aid training as well. The final lanyard holds the highest level of responsibility within V-Shop. The green lanyard is held by individuals who are testers in charge, so these people will hold a high voltage card and are ultimately responsible for switching on and off the 25,000 volt overhead supply within V-Shop. To gain a green lanyard you'll need all the previous training, with the addition of the high voltage card assessment at the end. Everyone in V-Shop has an important job to do, but there are 3 different roles that you should know about in detail. Those are the test or sale manager, the tester in charge and the person in charge. Let's go and speak to 3 of those people now.
I'm Darren Hunt. I'm the test manager for Crossrail and I look after the V-Shop facility. Worked for Bombardier for 26 years. So I've been a time-served electrician, worked on the tools in various test areas across the years, and then I held a team leader position, and then I've stepped up into the manager's role for the last 10 years. Yeah, so my role in managing V-Shop is I authorise all the work that gets carried out in the shop. All the activities that happen in the shop need to happen safely, and I oversee that they do so. It's looking after all the work that's carried out routinely for the Bombardier test guys, and also if we have to call in any contractors and sub-suppliers, we have to check out that all their safe systems of work and risk assessments are in place before we let them come into the shop and ensure that they're working safely. As part of the competency process, we will assess the relevant competency of the HV card holders, person in charge, tester in charge. Once we've deemed them competent, we'll assign those at the start of each shift for the relevant line.
Hello, my name's Chris Siddles. I'm a team leader on test. I've worked for Bombardier about 15 years. As tester in charge, I hold an HV card, so it allows me to power all the trains and the bays. My responsibility is to ensure the safe working of the bay systems work and risk assessments are carried out, direct point risk assessments. Also ensuring that people are signing in and out of the bays and ensure that the bays operate in a safe and timely manner. Well, we just make sure that people are coming in, they're signing in the books, making sure they're signing in and signing out, making control of what they're actually coming on the train to do, so we know the work that's going to be carried out, and also making the people when they come onto the train aware what state we've got the train in, whether it's powered up or not powered up, or what we've got to be working on. It's safety is the important thing. Is the one thing is we want everybody to go home in the way that they came to work, you know, in one piece, and no harm comes to anybody or anybody else who's working with them. The important thing in this shop is obviously we've got the 25,000 volts up in the air, which is the main hazard in the shop. Not the only hazard, but it is an unusual hazard for in our workshops. We haven't got anywhere else in workshop areas where we've got this kind of supply. So it is critical that people don't go above the cant rail height.
Well, I'm Eugene Finnegan and worked for Bombardier for 9 years on this term back. Test manager at the moment, just recently come into the department. Before that, I was on the production side of things. Person in charge, basically you'll have a team of workers in the testing environment. You've got to make sure that they're all inducted, they've all had health and safety awareness training as well. Make sure they're all aware of everything that's going on at the base, so that'll be all, any hazards, trip hazards, falling hazards, working at height, any work that's going on. With a person in charge, it's only where you power up to sail mode, so it's not in the full test mode, so it's not with the full 25 kV on. We've got 415 on in the pits mainly, so we've got access to that. Ultimately, I'm in charge and make sure nothing happens and that everyone is aware of what's going on. We're in charge of the line that I'm on. Yeah, so whether that be 4 road, 3 road, 2 road, yeah, it's not every road, just the line that I'm on.
We've just met the test manager, a tester in charge, and a person in charge. Do you remember Darren? He's the test manager in V-Shop. Darren's role is to oversee the running of the test facility and to designate people as testers in charge or person in charge. This is Chris. He's a team leader in V-Shop and a tester in charge. As a tester in charge, he's responsible for controlling a single road in test mode and switching on and off the 25,000 volts overhead line. Do you remember Eugene? He's qualified as a person in charge in V-Shop. That means he's responsible for controlling a single road in sail mode and switching on and off that 400 volts power. At the start of the induction, we talked about the different operating modes in VShop and some of the equipment that is operational in those modes. Now, we'll look at each mode again and talk about some of the key safety points associated with each. First of all then, there's off mode. In off mode, you can have as many people as you want on that road, so there's no maximum amount of people. And in off mode, there are no indications, so all of your indicator lights are off. Quite often, when a road is in off mode, you'll see a green flashing light at the top of the indications panel. That indicates that 25,000 volts overhead line has been earthed. The next mode is sail mode. Do you remember Eugene? He was a person in charge within VShop, and as a person in charge, he'd be responsible for taking control of a single road in sail mode. In sail mode, you can have a maximum of 30 people working in that road at any one time, and there will be a yellow flashing light on both the indications panel at the entrance to the road and also on the overhead indications. As well as the person in charge, you must have at least one other competently trained member of staff per bay. So those other 30 people could be comprised of external contractors, but you must have that person in charge and one other competent person. No one is allowed to get access to a unit in sail mode without having the approval of the person in charge responsible for that road. Anyone wishing to carry out work within VShop must have the correct safety shoes, all the necessary protective clothing and PPE required. The final mode is test mode. Do you remember Chris from earlier? He was a tester in charge and a team leader within VShop. As a tester in charge, Chris would be responsible for controlling a single road in test mode. In test mode, you can have a maximum of 10 people in that road, and test mode is indicated by a red flashing light on the indications panel at the entrance to the road and on all the overhead indicators as well. As well as that tester in charge, you must have one other person who is qualified as a tester to support the tester in charge. No one is allowed access to a unit that's in test mode without first seeking the approval of the tester in charge responsible for that road. Just remember that all people wishing to carry out work within VShop must have the correct safety shoes, protective clothing and PPE. We've spoken about the different modes within VShop and the different roles and responsibilities. What we'll go over now are some general safety rules that must be followed at all times whilst you're working within VShop. No personnel are allowed to work above cant rail height at any time. You can carry out visual inspections above cant rail height, but the road being worked on and the adjacent roads must either be in off or sail mode, with the 25,000 volts overhead line isolated, earthed and locked off in accordance with the lock-off procedure. Vehicles within VShop can be moved under their own power using the 25,000 volt overhead supply. However, to do so, that road must be in test mode, and there must be an at-point risk assessment carried out and a safe system of work implemented before you're able to carry out that movement. If at any time within VShop there's a unit in place on a road, but the power systems are not required for any sale or test activities, the batteries must be isolated and locked off in accordance with the lockout-tagout procedure. At no time within VShop may you use a personal stereo or headphones. As VShop is a new facility and the only facility on site with 25,000 volts overhead lines, we've had some special staging designed and produced to reduce the risk of electric shock. Therefore, only that specific staging is to be used whilst working on a train within VShop. If at any time you need a forklift to move or position equipment or components, the overall reach and load height must not exceed the height of the vehicle cant rail. As we discussed earlier in the induction, isolations of high voltage and power voltage supplies must only be carried out by an authorised person. Now we know the safety rules we need to follow whilst working in VShop, we'll talk about how we get access to the shop and start carrying out some work. The main entrance and exit for V-Shop is on the south side of the building through the pedestrian doors. To gain access to the shop floor, you'll need the correct fob, which will be issued to you if you're working in V-Shop. When you enter V-Shop, you must sign in. If you're working in the upstairs office, you should sign in the book in the entrance hall. If you're working on the shop floor, do not sign in the book in the entrance. Instead, sign in the register located just to the right of the door as you walk on the shop floor. As I mentioned earlier, you should never enter through one of the roller shutter doors, only through the pedestrian entrance. The keys for powering up and down the roads are stored in a key safe in the shop. Only authorised people will have access to that key safe. The team leaders, along with the person in charge or tester in charge, will make sure that they and everyone else signs in when they enter V-Shop. Once you're signed in, before you can start actually working, you need to speak to the person in charge or tester in charge of the road you'll be working on. Before work commences, the tester in charge or the person in charge must brief everyone on how V-Shop operates, make sure everyone has a specific job to be doing, and only allow contractors who have a current permit to work and an agreed risk assessment to enter their road. Also, before work commences, the tester in charge or person in charge will do a little inspection of their road and make sure it's clear of any obstacles, tripping hazards and is safe to work within. And they'll also make sure that there's no equipment within 9 feet, that's 3 metres, of the overhead line. If you're working in test mode, remember that the 25,000 volt overhead line is live at all times. If you're working in sail mode, the vehicle can be powered using the specific power board for that vehicle. Before you start any work on a vehicle in any mode, you must ensure that the vehicle is scotch blocked to prevent it from rolling whilst that work is being carried out. Whether you're working in sail mode or test mode, make sure you have all the correct documentation and procedures for the job you're doing before you start work. The tester in charge or the person in charge for your road will check this before you start working. Make sure that before you enter or exit any of the roads, you get the permission of the tester or person in charge of that road. If you don't have the phone number of the tester or person in charge, there's a yellow radio at the entrance to every road, and the testers and persons in charge also carry those radios, so you can use it to contact them. Once you've packed away and all your work's complete, the tester in charge or person in charge will make sure that everyone is signed out in the register. At the end of each shift, any keys for powering up and down roads or isolations must be returned to the key safe. The person in charge or tester in charge on the next shift will then have to sign them out and start the process again. This ensures that we don't leave trains in a powered up state during shift handover. Shunting is the movement of trains or individual cars in or out of the workshop. We'll now cut to Adam, one of the V-Shop team leaders, talking Bill through the shunting process in V-Shop.
I'd like you to explain to me, when we're going to move one of these out of here, what is the procedure?
To start with, obviously, we get in touch with the shunting. Once I've notified him, the tester in charge will then do a check to make sure that nothing's actually loose inside of the actual train. He'll do a walk round on the outside of the train.
Are there any other indications to other people around that the move is happening?
All that we have to notify everybody inside of V-Shop is that there is a blue light specifying that there is a movement of vehicle.
Once the move is complete, is that the end of the responsibilities of the shunt crew?
Once we've done our checks here and handed the control over to the shunt team, it's down to them then. So they'll escort the train out of the building, and then they'll come back into the building and make sure that the gates and the doors are secure.
What do we do if something goes wrong whilst working in V-Shop? In an emergency, the overhead line and shore supply may be isolated by hitting the emergency stop push buttons in the pit. Also in test mode, if you open any of the interlock gates, that will also cut the power. If there's a fire, first hit the nearest fire button. Extinguishers are available at fire points in the different bays. Don't use an extinguisher to actually fight a fire, only to help you escape from the building if a fire is blocking your way. Once you're out of the building, make your way to the fire assembly point. To get to the V-Shop fire assembly point, exit the pedestrian doors at the south of the building and turn left. Walk about 100 metres and you'll see the fire assembly point on your left. It's clearly marked by a sign. If you need the emergency services, telephone the gatehouse on the extension 4660 and tell them that this is an emergency, who you are, where you are, and which emergency services you require. There's a phone to do this in the first floor offices in V-Shop or in any of the other workshop buildings. The final part of your induction is a tour of V-Shop. Make sure you're wearing your bump cap, high-vis and boots, and we'll go and have a look at some of the facilities in V-Shop. First, and most importantly, are the welfare facilities. To get to the welfare suite, enter the shop floor, turn left, and then take the first door on the left. In here, straight ahead of you, you have a break room with plenty of seating, a kitchen, brew vending machine, and microwave for heating up any food.
Back out in the corridor, we have the men's toilets, the disabled toilets, and beyond the lockers, the women's toilets.
Back on the shop floor, we'll take a tour around the perimeter of the building and look at any fire escapes and any other points of interest. Here's the first fire exit, and to the right of it, the escapeway. The escapeway runs across all of the test bays, and there are 4 escapeways to match the emergency exits. The gates in the escapeway are interlocked, so as you move from road to road in an emergency, the power will be cut off as you go. This is the next fire exit and escapeway. Here's the third fire exit and escapeway. And notice as we walk down, there are fire points and first aid points scattered throughout the roads at regular intervals. And here's the fourth and final fire exit and escapeway on this side of the building. The 4 fire escapes on this side match the 4 fire escapes on the other side, so they're in the same place on both sides of the workshop. And that's the end of our tour of V-Shop. That just about wraps up the V-Shop induction video. I hope it's been informative and you're now ready to work safely within V-Shop. If you're watching this video on Segal, you'll now see a few short questions. They'll only cover what you've seen in this video, and they're there to make sure that you've been paying attention throughout the length of this presentation. If you've got any questions about this module or any suggestions, speak to your local training and competency team member. If you've got any questions about V-Shop after this video, speak to the appropriate person within V-Shop. Thanks for watching.